Anil, thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Good
And
evening,
on behalf of
Debashish.
the entire management, entire organization, please accept our gratitude for being with us today. A very, very warm welcome to Reboot.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
I would like to start off, and I think the group here would love to, have your perspective on certain things. I heard somewhere many, many years back they say that the highest form of knowledge is wisdom, and the deepest level of wisdom is empathy. And you are a person, I mean, I know I have so many things to ask you. While we were talking the other day, you are a person who lived the Kashmir files in your own experiences, right? You are someone who lived from borders to boards, the of organization. And I was with you when you were speaking about Ek Dushman Ek Goli. But something that moved me really, really with a lot of intensity were two things. One, you said no SOP works when you are at the point of fire, right? It
True.
doesn't work. And the second thing you mentioned about people get motivated with what you do, but not what you say. And that is remarkably profound. How would you, if you were to probably take a minute or two and just reflect back on your journey from this voice of authority, which is, your start of your career when you were 21, and then moving on to the side of voice of authenticity and then compassion and then empathy. How's the reflection in a quick 1-2 minutes from you, and then we move on further?
So, Debashish, actually, all the credit for keeping us earth or grounded, in my case, goes to my academy and my ustad, right, in academy. I'm from Officers Training Academy, Chennai, one of the toughest in Asia, because of the rigor and the heat and the way the heat is maintained by the ustads to make sure that they make men out of the boys, right? And yeah, so from day one at the academy, right, we are taught that what you will carry on your shoulders, the stars are really will mean nothing, right? Every person in the ground, every troop member is watching us, right? Is watching us for our actions, what we do, what we say would not matter, and they would corroborate it over the langar gup, right, over the food, right? Because lot of grapevine happens in langars and otherwise, right? कि ये सांप कैसा है, ये सांप बोलता क्या है, करता क्या है, and all of that. Right from where do I drink water from, how do I walk, how do I interact, right? So everything is under scrutiny, right? At the core, what we are taught is the human, right? It is that man or the woman today, as the NDAs have opened up, right? We have to make sure as officers that we understand the needs of every individual out there, right? And we literally listen. So the word is listen, right? Listen for the sake of listening, right? Not just because I'm in front of an individual and giving my ears, but I have to really uh, connect with that individual, right? Because as the training finished, right, we are leading minimum troop size of about 60 people, right? And they come from different parts of the country, right? And someone is from Assam, someone is from Nagaland, someone from Punjab, most of them are actually double my age, right? So how do you make sure that you are able to connect with each and every individual? And we have a very good drill called as anyone gets inside the unit or goes out for temporary duty or for the leaves, right? There is a lineup which happens where I, as an officer, get to stand in front of every individual and look him into the eye and just talk, right? Where are you going? Why you're going? What's the purpose? If you're going on leave or whatever, right? And when the person comes back to the unit, right, and then we again have that conversation as to how did the leave go, how did the temporary duty go. So that briefing, debriefing happens in such a human and in connected manner that I'm rest assured that the trust I have on the individual and the individual has on me is at the highest level. And whatever work the person is doing or supposed to do as part of the role will happen for sure, right? So
Just a quick about Anil. Anil is a third generation army officer, right? He has extensive leadership across, experience across defense, retail, telecommunication, financial services. He has led several entrepreneur opportunities ranging from setting up satellite Earth station for defense, setting up global capability center for a Fortune 100 company, leading AI. And I still remember, and I'm coming to that as well in some time about the AI thing that you mentioned in our conversation. So, the command center for the largest Indian corporate, end-to-end application ownership, for IBR for a large bank and managing large data energies and hybrid cloud for a credit bureau. He's also set up a veteran heritage rural resort, a fruit and orchid and organic farm. Anil is an alumni of Army School, Officers Training Academy, Birla Institute of Technology, and he believes in learning. He's a passionate learner, Symbiosis and MDI, Gurugram, and all that. He's married to his college friend and has two kids born on the same day, 5 years apart. Anil loves to mentor freshers and experienced professionals about career and life in general. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's Anil to you with a short intro, and I'm sure the rest of the conversation you will be able to see through his experience as he talks. How were you able to balance? Because defense is about authority, and you have solid targets and that boldness and rigidity and all that. So, how, as a human being, in the kind of person you are, able to strike that? I mean, I'm trying to get the stories about those families and care and all you spoke about. How were you able to manage that empathy and authenticity part in that experience?
So if I take you to my tenure in Ladakh, right? Now, Ladakh is a very fascinating place, right? In army terms, we mark it as one of the hazardous climates, right? A lot of people in corporate and otherwise would visit Ladakh for a week, 2 week, 10 days, bike rides and whatnot, right? So I was posted in Leh, I've served in Karu, I've served in Changla, 18,000 feet, and Partapur base camp and Tangse, Pengongso Lake, it's world famous after the movie Three Idiots, right? But what happens when you're leading a team size of about 270 troop members who are deployed in 18 odd locations, supporting the large troop strength of 20,000 people moving up and down the glaciers, right? Where you have Pakistan on one side, China on the other side, right? And the core objective is very, very simple, that we have to make sure that we are enabling the communication of these 20,000 troops through these 270 people in terms of functionality of the equipment, right? 24/7 email traffic, fax traffic, voice those days, everything is happening in an encrypted fashion, right? So at the core is the information security, right? But if I give you the context of minus 40-degree temperature, then everything starts to change, right? If you take a simple thing like oxygen, right? And if I ask you to walk 100 meters or run 100 meters, it'll be very different here in Bangalore in 30 degrees versus a Delhi of 42 degree and in Ladakh at minus 30, right? So the way I explain my son what is minus 18 is, I ask him to open the deep freezer and see what's the temperature there and put the finger, right? And see what happens in 5 minutes, right? And here I am at the age of 23 with this team size to make sure that the man behind the machine, which is the most important element, his morale is high, his administration is taken care of, right from hot food, making sure the rations are in place, making sure the vehicles are available, making sure the medical facilities are available, right? HAPO is a phenomenon which happens very frequently in case there is lack of oxygen, right? Immediately your brain will get filled with water, your lungs will get filled with water, right? And someone would have accidentally run for some distance or played a game of table tennis, right? With the required vigor. But the lack of oxygen, right, will just turn the tables around, and you would have to call a helicopter for evacuation of this individual. Or someone having an appendicitis burst, right, and the helicopter comes to your location a couple of times, is not able to evacuate the individual. Just imagine the agony of the patient, the troops, and I'm trying to coordinate all of this, right? But things happen, multiple attempts are made, and we make sure that the individual is evacuated in time, right? The vehicles are working all the time, right? And so you'll imagine that, if there's minus 40-degree temperature, What happens to the diesel, right? Will it start in one shot, right? What will happen to the generators? Those days we didn't have, uninterrupted power supply. The hydel doesn't work. Water freezes at zero. We have learned that, right? So everything is against the odds, and you have a man behind the machine, which is the gun, because safety and security is something he's responsible for, because you are close to the border and you are on the enemy territory. If your skin sticks to the metal of the gun for long, it just gets stuck and you'll have blisters, right? And if you're wearing socks, right, you're wearing multiple layers of socks, and if there is a sweat, if you walk around, right, if you go for a long walk as part of your exercises, right, there'll be minute crystals of ice between your fingers. And if you are not following the drill of keep cleaning your fingers time and time and again after removing the socks, you will have blisters, right? You'll have red toes. So how do you make sure you reiterate the basic stuff to your troops again and again, right? And when you have one chapati, right, that chapati is fighting for oxygen to digest in your stomach, right? Because there are no trees. If I leave you at a particular spot on the snow and I turn you around blindfolded, you'll not know which direction to go, because there is no point of reference like a tree or a building, right? When you're going on a patrol, suppose you're going for an area domination patrol, and in this scenario, you have to make sure that people are sent on leave timely, because no one is allowed to be in that terrain for more than 3 months.
Oh, okay.
Right. And that 3 months also happens in phases. You make the man or the woman acclimatize every 1,000 feet or every 500 feet as the person starts to move towards the glacier. So you would realize that despite of being from a technical regiment, right, you have to make sure that all the Adam bandobast is taken care of, right?
Wow.
So this is what typically brings the humility. Then you realize how important is oxygen, right? So we saw what happened during COVID, and so we've all gone through that. But it reminded me back of my Ladakh days, where oxygen itself was an issue, right? If you walk fast 100 meters, you have to tell yourself, no, you're not on land, you're not in Delhi, you're not in Bangalore. You have to slow down. So we write there, if you go to Ladakh in army areas, you will find written there, don't be Gama in the land of Lama.
All right. That's nice. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when you are leading large troop size of 300 people, you have to make sure that every person understands that, because the troops are getting inducted every now and then. But I am posted there for whatever tenure, 2.5 years, 3 years. I may be the first one to get into the regiment as the youngest officer, but by the time the 2.5, 3 years finish, I may be the oldest one or the most tenured one left behind. So many would have gone and come and gone. I have to make sure. I have seen the hazard. I have seen the lack of following the SOP, what it has caused to people, right?
Absolutely. What are the 2-3 top lessons that you have carried in your corporate stint while you were setting up the capability center, especially in the technology side and all, and you were with the board? What are those 2-3 experiences you really capitalized on and that helped you in a much stronger way?
So Debashish, as I joined corporate, I started with Walmart, right? So the gentleman who interviewed me was from UK, and he had this question that you from managing uniform to managing people who are in civil dress. I see the commonality is people, right?
Right.
Commonality is people, and whatever task I was given, maybe initially was to set up the data centers. Had I done it hands-on? Maybe not. Did I learn from someone in the team and then help remove the hurdles? Yes, I did that, right? Did I learn? So continuous learning was something which my first boss, Andy Marshall, taught me when I stepped into Walmart, right? And being humble definitely helped, right? And whatever opportunities came my way, giving it all what I could and asking for help whenever it was needed, right? I've had mentors all along my army and corporate tenure. Mentors have helped me navigate whenever I have a question and I have a perspective about how to tackle it through my past experience, in some cases no experience. I'll go back to someone who's 10 years, 15 years ahead of me, who's been there, done that, may not have solved that particular. But when I give the inputs, he would give me a general direction, a guardrail, that why don't you try this, then this, and the person would be very upfront, and saying, look, I've never handled this particular situation of whatever you're trying to do, build a capability center, right? If you look at it, the Fortune 1 company giving a task to someone who has never done it in the past, it's a big responsibility, right? But then when your seniors, your leaders, you have their back. Someone is going to keep guiding you and sheltering you, and making mistakes is no big issue, right? So whether it was defense or it is corporate, right? One of the things was which I learned is seeking permission in a large organization is far more tough than seeking forgiveness.
Really?
So I use that shamelessly, right? So because here in one of my assignments, I was building a satellite Earth station, right? First of its kind, under guidance of very senior scientists from ISRO, right? Was it done in the past? No. Should I take permission for every small thing, right? Because I have a doubt, right? No. So you you use your general gut feeling, and if you're doing the right thing, people will go ahead, and in most of the circumstances, I would say 9 out of 10, there were no mistakes. People just came and applauded and awed and said, wow, what has this created? And it worked brilliantly in corporate also, as I built the Walmart India setup from a technology standpoint, or when I was tasked to build the global capability center for Walmart, or when we did fascinating things for the largest Indian corporate, right? When Reliance Retail happened, then Jio happened in 2016, right? So that principle definitely helped me a lot, that, seek guidance from your mentors, and seeking forgiveness is far easier than seeking permission.
Lovely.
Right? Because if you keep seeking permission every now and then, things are going to be very slow. Absolutely. And one of the advice I've always got is, initially when I joined, in about first 5 years of my corporate tenure, is go slow. Right? Because in defense, things move so fast, right? Because you have so much of authority with you, and you have a big team size, and you don't have too much of time to accomplish things, right? For an example, I would be told that tomorrow we'll have a 3-star general who will come for our inspection of whatever capability we have created. He would come and see, right? So you have to prepare for everything, your documentation, whatever you want to show, everything, right from, who's going to stand where in the lineup. Every small, minute details will be chalked out, and you have hardly 6, 7, 8 hours, right? Whereas in corporate, you have more time, right? So my general joke was, what get accomplished in a single day in defense maybe takes a couple of weeks in corporate.
So did you also have that sort of fear that you're shouldering in a huge responsibility, and what if it fails? What if that doesn't happen and all that? I mean, how are you able to strike a balance?
No, I think the rapport which I had, very senior people, whether it was when I was building this satellite Earth station, or the Global Capability Center, or the Walmart India technology side of it, the senior most stakeholder was the one I was having conversation with, right? And these were real leaders who would like tell you, okay, go ahead and achieve it, and wherever you get stuck, let me know, right? My job is, as a servant leader, to remove the obstacle from your path, right? Now that gives so much of confidence that it was more of an excitement of learning and delivering, right? So that thing was never there. Oh my God, if this goes wrong, then what? Because in most of the circumstances, whatever was being done for the first time. So there was no reference point, right? When I spoke to a very senior leader in NASSCOM, when I was part of the Fortune 1, right? And we were saying, okay, we are having strategic partners, right? And we are going to give them a size of our portfolio. And the risk is high. If that company goes down, then. And then she looked at me and said, you know what? You are the headlight of the industry. People will follow you. We really don't know. No one has done it, right? But you don't stop. You take a stab and you do it in a methodical manner. Do some pilots, couple of pilots, and see if it is working. And everyone is watching you. Every time I used to go back to US and talk about some small success stories, right, for a particular director, senior director, VP, SVP area, the others used to get excited, right? Because the value propositions are very strong of the Indian talent, right? Whether it was the examples of the productivity, follow the sun, the cost leverage and whatever, right? And the real talent piece of it was very, very strong. So every meeting I went into, right, people had already, the leaders had already got an input, and I was just doing a topping on an ice cream or a cake, right? They had already done their homework before. I used to meet about 100 plus senior executives in US, in the Fortune 1 company, almost like a seller. But I'm doing internal selling, right? But and you're showing what are the outputs being generated for a different area, and invite them to India, see what work products are being created. A lot of time they came back and said, we are amazed to see what gets done while we sleep, right? So it was never a thought in my mind that, okay, if this goes wrong, then what? Because I had backing of really very nice human leaders, right, who had risen from the ranks, right? Like a couple of them, they started their careers mopping floors and were chief operating officer of the India business.
Wow.
Someone started his career as meat cutter and became the head for the meat section for entire US, right? And when you live with those people, you spend time and you see their humbleness while you're at a restaurant or any offsite or otherwise, right? You don't have to go to an MBA school to learn humbleness or whatever, right? You see it right in front of you when that man takes a mop and starts mopping, and he says, "Okay, I started my career here." Right? So a lot of life lessons you get to just observe people and learn. And I was just fortunate enough to have lived with those people and learn, and maybe a little bit of it I was able to imbibe in my actions.
Just curious to know, I mean, when you are at your best, when Anil is his best, what would you like doing? Is it
I would
song,
like to go for a long run.
long run? Wow, that's nice. And how are you catching up with though? I mean, you had that experience. I mean, with the two kids at home, what is it that, I mean, how do you spend time with, or what sort of a conversation that you engage with mostly?
I'm actually an outdoor person, right? And my friends from school and college and otherwise, right, when they see my Facebook updates, they're like, when do you work? Like, we have not seen you work for the last 20 years. How do you earn your livelihood? Right? Tell us the secret. And the secret is that, in all my assignments, large team, small team, I think that work doesn't require more than 5 to 6 hours in a day. If it is
Mhm.
well planned, if there are no interpersonal issues, right? Everyone is rowing the boat in the same direction, right? You are getting the required help from all the stakeholders across the levels,
Right.
right? So I get to really spend a lot of time with my kids daily, swimming with them, playing table tennis, taking them for cycling, playing football with them, right? I'm an outdoor person, and I'm a third generation. I've got 30 more men, women in my family who wear uniform of Army, Navy, Air Force, and paramilitary, right? Every shadi we go to, every place we go to, my kids would get to just talk and hear and listen about their experiences, maybe in CRPF or as an Air Force pilot or as a submariner or someone who's managing or running a ship, a warship, right? Uh, naturally the inclination is towards outdoors and spending a lot of time and a lot of questions around how was my life in army, right? So every night my younger son is going to tell me, okay, give me a story of one of your operations, right?
Uh-huh. That's nice. Yeah, yeah. That's the best way to learn and reflect as well.
Because I believe parents are the best teachers, right?
Wonderful.
And the
That's true.
child is always, I have 12 and 7-year old, and there is no best teacher than me and my wife and the grandparents.
No doubt.
I almost live in a joint family today. My in-laws are here with me, stuck for the last 2 3 years because of the COVID, and my mother stays with me. And
Wow.
so the house is full. I almost sleep on a mattress in the drawing room.
Right. And your kids kind of hear you what you say and also see you what you do. So that way, of course, you're the best teacher. Perfect. Thanks for sharing this. This is lovely. Anil, now, I mean, this would be good to hear your views on that. I mean, as an organization, we see now we are a very young organization, and if you look at our people, also they are all most of them are Gen Z and millennials and so on. Uh, and on the business side, there's a constant disruption happening. I mean, thanks to technology and then the divine interventions like COVID and so on and so forth. Right now, while the overall goal is kept intact, the working level, team level goals sometimes it keeps shifting, right? And we as an organization need to pivot ourselves very fast. I mean, you were speaking about the defense experience that you need, the decisions are faster and so on. So how do you see that? I mean, what's your take or what's your message in terms of being committed or remain committed to the goal and objective that we exist in the organization, and simultaneously having that agility to pivot ourselves faster than the uh, external forces of competition. So what message would you like to give us?
I think keeping every person in the team sufficiently aware of what's happening in the ecosystem. And the ecosystem is, as you rightly mentioned, the competition, right?
Right.
So in my previous, organizations in corporate, right, we were given books written by our competitor's founder, right? That was the CEO's directive that go ahead and read this book, which is written from by the competitor's founder. It is depicting the mindset of the competition, right? Because I'm trying to beat the competition, right? And unless I don't understand in a typical psychological warfare manner what the adversary is thinking or what the competition is thinking, how am I going to beat him or her in that game? The other is, I think the onus would lie on the leadership of the organization to make sure that everyone understands the degree of change happening, right? There are some organizations like Facebook. I say, you know what, if the coder makes a change in the code somewhere, there's a direct impact you and me will, observe. So degree of change is just 1 degree, right? Versus someone sitting somewhere in some department doing something and there's no direct impact. Largely, that's what happens, in different type of businesses, right? But there's so much of change happening. So the role of the internal communication team or the managers playing that role, right? Like in the companies I worked, it was one of the managers' core job was to make sure that he or she keeps himself or herself apprised of what's happening in the ecosystem, and sometimes just invite the managers from a different area, upstream or downstream, to talk about what's changing in their space, right? What's going to change in our space 3 months, 6 months, which is going to impact them, right? So that way the cohesiveness builds in and no one is surprised suddenly, oh, by the way, we were doing this and this team didn't inform us that this is coming through and whatever we have done is gone into the drains, right? And in fact, that was a one word message which was given to me by my mentor when I was given the task of building the Global Capability Center: communication. He didn't talk about any technicality, and he was one of the 20 EVPs which the Fortune 1 company has, right? And he used to represent to the board. He said communication is the only thing you have to make sure there is enough and more to make sure everyone understands what's happening. And coming from a military background, right, you would see, if during an operation a particular person of a particular title is knocked out, someone else leads, right? The reason they are able to lead is because there's enough briefing and debriefing which happens at different stages of the operation, right? Because anyone can fall, right? Anyone can fall in that group. Someone can leave the organization in corporate term, or someone can go out for a long unplanned sick leave. So then is everyone sufficiently aware of what's the plan, what needs to be done, right? And definitely having a plan B and plan C is definitely something which helps, because not everything, especially during the last 3-4 years, what we have seen, most of the things will not go as what we envisage them to go for, right? We are living in a VUCA world. So many things are changing, right? We have seen what has happened in the fintech domain, right? And I was having the data engines run for the entire Indian economy to throw out credit rating report within milliseconds. Now, who could think about that 10 years back, but it's happening, right? So definitely, enough and more communication is key. Enough and more reading, self-paced reading has to be. I don't know how many people read books, but I still read books, right? I buy a lot of books. I read them, especially what's happening in the ecosystem, metaverse, whatever, because things are changing. Every 3 months, there is a new term coming in, right? And in technology space, one has to, continuously learn and read and share. I think gone are the days when you'll hold up information to yourself, right, and rise. That doesn't happen, right? And that's again one message I would give. One of the reason I have been relatively okay in my career is because I have helped others grow. It's not about me; it's about others. I've given my shoulders for others to rise, right? And that is a very important trait of a leader. It's not about me; it's about them. It's about the different person. It is about every individual. Having those one-on-one meetings at whatever periodicity one can afford as a people manager are so key to make sure that you're listening to that individual. And like a gardener, you are watering that particular plant differently. Like a garden has different type of plants. Some saplings are doing good, some are not. And people are exactly like that. Somewhere you have to water more, somewhere you have to stop the watering, somewhere you have to show more sunlight.
I'm curious to know from you is that, uh, I mean, authenticity also has this element wherein, your dark and the light is right up front, right? There's no facade, there is nothing of that sort. But there is also this element of being misunderstood. What if I talk about my weaknesses or areas of improvement? I may be misunderstood or whatever ABC. So how do you see that? I mean, the vulnerabilities that I have, do I show up with who I am, what I am, or I mean, what's your take on this? To be authentic, but that's an important part. And you know,
Yeah, I'll give you with my own personal example, right? So
yeah,
by the time we are out of the academy, it's very clear that wherever we will get deployed, we will have a shelf life of 6 months, 1 year, or whatever, right? And then we'll be put into a very different scenario. For an example, the first one was I was wearing 4 or 5 hats. You are a training leader in the morning at 5 a.m. You're taking the troop for 5 kilometer run. You are climbing a rope first hand with your hands, and 60 people or 100 people are watching you while you do that with rifle, right? You become the firing instructor in the afternoon at 3 p.m. and in between you do communications and technology maintenance of the equipment and make sure 20,000 troops are able to communicate properly. Right now, in these changing scenarios, and 6 o'clock in the evening, I was a data scientist and had a separate team of 27 guys helping me, with some insights, and so that I could present at 6:30 to a 2-star, 3-star general. Right now, I cannot be an expert of all of this because all of this is so varied. Right, I have to trust my people. Right, I have to trust my people to do their job. So one of the questions I used to sort of ask myself and encourage my team to do it: am I doing enough, and am I doing it the right way? Right, and I used to be very upfront. If I'm going at 11 o'clock, 11 p.m. area domination patrol, which is going to be in the hostile territory for next 6 hours with 12 fresh set of commandos with a tracker dog, right? I know that these people have done it more number of times than me. And I'm very open about asking, okay, what all do you observe? What all do you want us to be aware of and careful of? Right? Because I'm not having that weight of I'm a lieutenant and I have 2 stars on each shoulder and I know it all, and then I'll take them into the darkness. And my aim is to make sure whatever information is available with us, all 12 of us are on the same page. Right. And when I am told to set up a satellite Earth station, I told the senior scientist in ISRO, sir, I've never done this in the past. I have 170 guys. Their education levels as compared to your scientists of 25 years is relatively very, very different. When he said, that okay, we'll make a scientist sit here for 3 months and you do the KT session and the knowledge transition, I came back after a month and told, no, we'll take 6 months. This is a huge investment. And then he looked at me and said, really? I thought you were smart people. I said, we are smart, but we have to dump this entire technology of satellites so that an 8th standard or a 10th standard guy can understand it. And when the team came back after a year from ISRO, they were amazed to see the output, right, which we have created, right? I think the moment we call it out that we need help, the ecosystem gets together to help us, right? Rather than being a scenario that, okay, I know it all, and when people are just waiting for you to fall, and maybe someone just wants to kick you in the grave which you have dug for yourself.
Considering your past experience, do you feel comfortable giving constructive feedback to your peers?
Once you have a sort of a trusted ecosystem created, you get your peer group with your team for say a half an hour or a 1 hour, right? And in a very open way, without a fear of retaliation, your team shares one or two, or maybe we used to do a 7 adjective exercise, right? Everyone writes 7 adjectives about me, right? And it is a 360-degree, right? My peers write it, my team members write it, all across, right? My seniors write it. And then I used to get those 7 adjectives. And we used to do this exercise rampantly all across, right? And it used to give everyone an adjective, say out of 7, 1 or 2 adjectives, which indicates what needs to change. And then in a very open fashion, that person is going to come, I'm going to go to and say, okay, maybe here it is written that I'm very fast, or I'm very impatient, right? Because I'm looking at speed of execution. And that guy who spent time with my team, he will say, you know what, Anil, you would have to sort of slow down because this is not military, right? So you have to sort of give time to people. This is initially, first couple of years while I was just settling down in corporate. But I found it as a very effective way. And I don't know who said what, and neither that is being told, right? But I go back and say, okay, next time, suppose I'm giving 2 weeks, maybe I have to give 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And I used to start asking questions to myself, what would go wrong if I ask 1 more week from my bosses to complete this task? And do not put undue pressures on my team to deliver, right? Because over a period of 20 years, I've realized that a lot of these rushes which we create are non-warranted.
What's your approach to conflict resolution in tough climates? Something you find is also valid in this pandemic situation.
See, pandemic definitely is an abnormal situation, all right, for everyone, right? So first is a realization. I'm telling myself that, yeah, it has happened. It has happened to all of us. Now, how closely do we stay with each other? How much more we communicate with each other? And I'm not talking about just the office setting. I'm just talking with, if I'm not happy at home, I'll not be happy in my workplace, for sure, right? It will show up. Yeah, so I think communication with family members, extended family members, and people in workplace, which going back to my army days are my extended family, right? I would know exactly किसके कितने बच्चे हैं, किसकी कब शादी हुई है, नहीं हुई है, which place he belongs to, उसके क्या कौन से cases चल रहे हैं land related, anything and everything, right? Because only then I would be able to appreciate if a particular deliverable was not delivered, why it was not delivered, rather than asking, okay, why was it not delivered? It was supposed to be, right? So then it becomes less of a sort of a very formal conversation to a very informal yet impactful, right? Because I have never seen someone letting me down in terms of deliveries, right? Because the trust is strong. So I think communication and more communication is very, very important, especially during these times when we are not meeting face to face. Because I strongly believe that principle still holds good, what we learned in MBA institutes or somewhere, that 90% of communication is body language.
Yes.
And there is no substitute for being in the room, looking someone into the eye, giving a pat on the back. There is no substitute for that. But yes, we have to be safe, and organizations are doing what they're supposed to do, right, to create the required environments required during COVID times.
New generation surrounded with so much of tech, we have seen issues related to immediate gratification. How do we cultivate patience in such a scenario?
When you ask me this question, I go back to that visual in my mind in academy my adjutant, my instructor, adjutant is the head of the academy, right? He was sitting on a horse, white horse. And as we got commissioned on 7 September 2002, right, he looked into our eyes and he said, life is a marathon. And it's like a candle. If you burn it very fast, you will burn down fast. Run it like a marathon. And if you ever run, right, you'll realize life is not a 100-meter sprint that I give it all my energy and then I'm all, gone and finished. It's a marathon. Marathon requires endurance. It's like a relay. You run one lap and then you run the second one and your third one. You're running a 5-kilometer marathon. You would need to reach the finish line. Good enough to drink a hot chocolate glass as a reward, right? Boredom is good, right? Always being active, and fast reactions and responses from people is bizarre. Believe you me, one of the realizations I've had is no one is interested in your story. So don't worry about it, right? Don't worry about who is thinking what about yourself. Make sure you're taking care of your health, and mental health is derived from physical health. Right? If I'm physically having issues and I'm not feeling good for whatever reason, the way I look, I used to look in academy and how I look now, whatever troubles me, right? All right. So I had to work on sort of doing physical exercises and make sure whatever Ustad made me do, I do at least 10% of that, right? Or 20% of that. So my mental state would be good. कि यार अभी भी ठीक लग रहा हूँ मतलब. दूर से कोई कहेगा तो हाँ आर्मी ऑफिसर तो था शायद कभी. Because those things matter to me. Right? And take a walk into the forest. And believe you me, one of the thoughts which always helps me is that if something doesn't go right, I ask myself, okay, how does it matter in the next 5 years, 2 years, 3 years? COVID happened, 2-3 years just wiped out of the planet's, whatever, timetable or whatever, right? 7 billion brains thinking. So what's the rush about, right? Breathe slowly. Right? Enjoy life daily. Don't worry too much about tomorrow and stuff. Live life king size today, because that's being in the present.
I'm told that in forces, the battle squad don't wait for orders, but they are nurtured to assume orders in battle. How to build this culture in software organizations?
See what happens in defense, right? While I'm in the battlefield in a hostile terrain with 12 of my team members, and we know the mortar fire or the bullet can come from any direction, from an abandoned building or otherwise, or I am in sub-zero temperatures at -30, right? The passion for my work is so high. I'm working for a faceless customer, which is a citizen, right? I would never see a citizen at -30, -40, but my passion is very strong about what I'm doing and my purpose. Right? Somehow, if I can create a common purpose for my team, that is the culture, right? If we back up each other, we are always there for each other, right? And we have a lot of we pull each other's leg, right? We have that sort of a safe environment, right? Maybe time and again, put some cake on the manager's face and the manager still smiles, right? That type of a thing. It takes a lot of courage. And in the military setting, we have morning PT, we have drills, we have games in the evening, troop games, we have food together in the langar in the afternoon, in the mess at night. There are so many places we are meeting time and again. Only our rig keeps changing, our clothes keep changing depending on the hour of the day and the drill we are part of. But that is a very strong thing, and our purpose is common, right? We are trying to make sure that no one of us falls down, right? It should not happen that we went out 12, but we came out 11, right? That is not acceptable to any one of us. And we have to make sure that whether we are our physical fitness, that should be in the top notch, because out of 12, even if one is down, he will bring 11 down, right? Because the rest of the 11 have to lift this guy, right? If we have to fire, we have to fire for effect. Ek goli, ek dushman. I have to make sure that each one of us are at a decent level of, taking the target. Right? It should not happen. I poofed off my, magazine but still the target is there and I'm overwhelmed by enemy. Right? So all this is requiring a lot of practice, right? And practicing together, training together, sweating during the peacetime so that you don't have to bleed during the war.
First of all, thank you very much, Forum colleagues on the call, for sharing this space with Anil. Uh, for me, it has been, I will treasure this conversation very, very close to my heart, Anil, and thank you very much. Zeta will always be grateful to you